Well, hello there. In this video, I got a little bit excited with the upcoming Obi Wan series, and I decided to print something a little bit different to what I usually print off on my Resin 3D printer. So I'm going to go through these, which I had a lot of fun putting together, printing off, and obviously painting up as well, and just go through why sometimes having a Resin 3D printer really lets you kind of just nerd out and print some new toys. So let's kick off with Obi Wan himself. I'll have all the links for these down below as well, so if you do want to check them out yourself, head on over. And this pack, basically, it came with two lots of Obi Wan. And the first one is, it's a much bigger model than obviously what I have here. This is, I believe it was a 32mm scale one, and I've scaled it up. So it's just much bigger, more like an action figure instead, but it also comes with like a really big one that comes in multiple pieces. This one prints off in just one go, and I like that, just made it a little bit simple for me. But the other one, it basically comes in all the different body parts, you put it together and you get a really big model. So if that's the sort of thing you're after, then it's also included. I had a lot of fun doing this, and it's the first time I printed off, I guess, like a human that is much bigger than the normal scale that I'm used to painting. So first off, in terms of painting it, I hit it obviously with a black undercoat and then with a white over top using my airbrush, just to give it a nice black and white zenithal. So after doing the zenithal undercoat, I then went back in with the white, and I really kind of got it bright on all these armor plates and stuff like that. Just obviously, I didn't want to go back in there. Problem doing it this way is it made me really conscious that I was going to ruin it, which I'll come on to in the next step. I then went on with this sort of like blue as well, because I wanted to do something with a lightsaber that wasn't just like a block color with some dry brushing. So I decided I would experiment with my airbrush for like the first time. And I hit obviously the lightsaber itself to kind of give it this blue glow whilst retaining some of that white in the middle. But then I also wanted to try and give him some blue glow on him and all his armor as well. So I lightly used the airbrush, and I think I just about pulled it off to make it look like that lightsaber is glowing on there. Maybe it could have been a bit more stark and had a lot more light coming through, but I didn't want to go too mad because then I knew that I would absolutely decimate the white below. So after I did the lightsaber and all of the glow effects and everything, I just went back in with some army painter speed paints and finished up the rest. And this is where I kind of started to film and then stopped, just because I was really struggling to get around my camera, and my setup was absolutely awful at the time trying to do it. I just wanted to enjoy it. So I just put down all of my Army Painter speed paints, and I've got to say, I really liked the look of it by the end of it. I then went back in and I don't know if it's stippling, but basically I scratched off the white on the armor, so around like the kneecaps and things like that, just to give it this sort of like battle damage. And I've never done that before, but actually it was so easy to do. It basically scratched off the top of it and it gave it that black coming through underneath of it. Yeah, I really like it. It's a really good effect. And the great thing is, where I'd got far too eager when I'd first started out with this, I'd picked it up a couple of times whilst it was still drying, and that ruined the white, and I didn't want to go back in with my airbrush and try and fix it. So actually I was able to kind of blend those fingerprint marks on the white armor with the battle damage. So it turned out really nicely. And this is literally just a one coat. I haven't gone back in to do any cleanup work. I threw in some of the metallics as well, so on like the belt, on the lightsaber hilt as well. And then I went back in with my usual wash, which is made up of oil paints with some white spirits. And to be honest, I think it looks really good for that. So that's Obi Wan himself, the main event. I like this pose. It's that sort of, I guess, classic Obi Wan pose, about to go into a duel, and I absolutely love it. My only complaint with this sculpt is his sort of, I guess, I don't even know what you're gonna call it, but like the fabric that goes over the armor and like just underneath like the pauldrons and stuff like that, it almost looks like chainmail the way it's textured. The texture looks really good, but it looks a bit off, and I haven't seen that in like any of the other Obi-Wan poses or anything like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but apart from that, it looks fantastic. The sculpt is really, really good, so hats off to the designer for this one. Now moving on to perhaps the main event, and that is this lightsaber. I wanted to pick up a lightsaber hilt for ages, and then with the Obi Wan series coming up, I decided, why don't I try and print my own instead? And to my surprise, it was actually really easy. Now, this lightsaber model comes in multiple different parts. Obviously, I have ended up just gluing it all together just because it made it easy for this. It's just going to be a display piece that's going to go in the backdrop. It's not completely finished painting at the moment, and I'll go back in and add a little bit more detail. But it comes off in multiple different parts. So depending on the size of printer you've got, you are probably going to be able to fit this on. The largest part out of the whole lot is going to be this sort of like middle bit here, this sort of barrel. And to be fair, it's not overly big, and I think that would fit even on my original Mars Pro. So if you've got a smaller printer, you're still going to be able to print this off, so don't worry too much about it. Like I said, it comes in, I think it's about 12 different parts. So starting from the bottom all the way through to the top. And one of the really nice things about this is it takes, I think it's an M2 screw, which I do have in here just for weight. And what you can do is you can thread it into the bottom here, all the way through to the top, attach a nut into this part here, and it'll literally hold the whole thing together. So that way, if you want to unscrew it, you can do, and that allows you just a bit more control over painting. You can strip the lightsaber down. And the great thing about doing that is it has this crystal chamber that goes inside of it as well. So if you want to paint that up, you can then unscrew it, get access to the crystal chamber, and it just adds loads of little extra bits that I kind of wouldn't expect to get from this. Printing it off was really easy. I didn't have any issues putting it together. There was no warping or anything like that. I didn't have to do particularly anything really in terms of cleanup. I just slapped it all together and I called it done. Once it was all glued together, I literally just grabbed one of my spray cans, did a black undercoat, and then I went back to my airbrush and used like a silver over the top as well. There's a bit of overspill on this sort of like bottom bit, but I actually quite liked the way it turned out, so I chose to leave it. And then I went back in just with the gold in terms of just actually with a paintbrush and finished it up that way. And I've got to say, I'm going to leave it pretty much here. I will do a bit of cleanup, but I really, really like the way this turned out. My only complaint about it is it has like this kind of branding logo over the top of it, which I suppose is fine, but it would be nice if it offered an attachment bit there that didn't have the branding on it. I could probably sand it down or fill it in, but I'm not overly concerned about that. So all in all, it's got a good bit of weight in there because there's a decent amount that prints off with it. And also because I've got that screw inside of it as well, it just adds a real good bit of heft. Once it's all been glued and screwed together, it feels really solid. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. I've shown it to a couple of people and they've all been really impressed with the quality of it and basically pointed out that they could definitely expect to buy something like this and get it in this quality and not have any complaints about it. It's definitely a good, fun project. And I just wanted to do something different with my 3D printer when I saw the Obi Wan trailer. I just got a little bit nerd excited. It's just how I am. And I wanted to do something different. I printed off a lot of 32 and 28mm scale models. I do a lot of that on the channel, but I wanted to kind of show off that with a Resin 3D printer, you can print off something that is obviously much larger and just used for something very different, like a prop or a backdrop item. And then also have a go at painting something bigger. And obviously I went with Obi Wan. I didn't want to go too big because it would just take up so much time and resin, but actually I really, really like the way this turned out. And I'm pretty happy with the results I got from both Obi Wan and also the lightsaber. So let me know in the comments below, have you done something similar to this? Also as well, should I get a blade for it as well and just try to attach that? I'm not going to try and print anything because that's just going to be an absolute disaster and it's just not going to work. But maybe picking up a blade to attach to it and just having it as part of a backdrop, add some LEDs in there maybe and just get really experimental. And do you want to see me do any more sort of like action figure type size things or model type size things in the future? And if you do, what would you like to see? So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you enjoy the series, obviously, when it comes out as well, and it's not a letdown because I've got really, really far too excited at this point. Stay safe, hit the like and subscribe button, and let me know down below in the comments what sort of projects have you been printing off lately, and what sort of things are you going to be doing in the future. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.